Warm welcome again to the Ref Show. A referee influences a result, but in the right way. Now, how's that come to be? We'll discuss a certain game involving a certain referee. His name is Mike Deane. Deane is a popular name on this show this week, as you'll find out. First, let me tell you, there are more ticks than ticking offs for Premier League referees this week, which is always welcome in the studio. We introduce a new panel member alongside an old one, though not old, I hope, in the literal sense, Brian Deane, and taking forward the Deane theme, sitting in for Keith Hackett this week, but a new panel member on the You Are the Ref Show, former Football League official, Dean Mohareb. I've got your name right as well. Welcome to the show, Dean. It's good to have you along.
Thank you.
And Mike Deane, we start with. Who else would we? We don't want referees deciding results, but here we have Mike Deane, the High Sheriff of Grappling. He's selected for Manchester United against Leicester at Old Trafford. And guess what? It's 4-1 to United. 3 of the goals come from corners and not a Leicester grapple in sight.
Yeah, I think obviously the first couple of weekends Mike had quite a lot of publicity around his decisions to award penalties. But it's paid off. I mean, the amount of grappling at corner kicks now is reducing, and I just hope that the referees keep on top of it and make sure that it's not a sort of couple of week phase that dies off. And I think Mike started well.
Yeah, no, for me, it's grappling's always been a massive bugbear for me because, you know, as a forward who's going in there trying to score, you know, I remember back in the day where it wasn't uncommon to see defenders with both their arms around you wrestling you to the floor, and you're asking the referee for action and nothing's happening. So, you know, to see now there's a zero tolerance, I think is good for the game. I think, like we've just spoken about Manchester United, three goals have scored from corners, which means now that defenders have to start thinking about the art of defending again.
Yeah, and even a serial offender like Robert Huth, he's powerless when he knows that Mike Deane's in the middle, and he's going to concede a penalty if he carries on doing it. Disturbingly, Dean, I know you've returned from the States, and you're seeing something you don't want to see there.
I watched an MLS game, and I mean there were a number of English players playing for both teams, but there was grappling at every corner kick, and it was obvious grappling. So obviously something that the MLS need to get hold of as well.
Yeah. Just harking back to your career briefly, Marcel Desailly was an offender where you were concerned, wasn't he, in games?
Yeah, just I remember playing against Chelsea when I was at Middlesbrough, and you know, we had a corner, and I just remember him standing square onto me, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? As soon as the corner was taken, he's grabbed me and wrestled me to the floor. And
what did you do?
Well, sometimes you have to, you know, take the law into your own hands. So, you know, it only happened once anyway. No, but you know, if I'm trying to wrestle myself free, you know, you might catch a stray arm or something like that along the way. So
you didn't use those words before we started the show. You just said you smashed him.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's what you said. I don't know if I misheard you though.
I'm pleading the fifth of
that. Talking of use of hands from another angle now, confidence booster for Andre Marriner and all Premier League referees when regards deliberate handball in the area and whether it's going to be a goal, whether they've prevented a goal or not. And coincidentally, we've got 2 back-to-back incidents involving Hull City. A week ago, in their home game, there was an incorrect red card, wasn't there, for Jake Livermore? But this week, there was a correct red card applied. Ahmed El Mohammadi sent off in Hull's 5-1 defeat at Liverpool. So it's a hairline thing, but a good spot.
A correct decision. Really good spot from Andre, because it's not an extension of the hand. The player doesn't put his hands away from his body. It's not clear. He sort of uses the top of his shoulder and nudges his arm out. So I thought it was a really good spot to give the penalty. And as you say, it's a correct red card. There's quite a bit of confusion over the new law, particularly with denial of a goal in the penalty area, but there has to be an attempt to play the ball. So obviously handball doesn't apply. It's a red card. So
with the Livermore one, it wasn't actually going. No. It wasn't certain it was going in the goal. Whereas this one, it really was, wasn't it?
It was.
It was going to be a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the incident and I saw, you know, just the look on his face as he's running away, and it's like, what, me? And you know, blatant handball for me. Yeah. You know.
But even so, it was a fraction of a second and a very small reflex movement to the ball. So
it happened so quick. So
Andre did well.
Yeah, we did very well.
Yeah. Neil Swarbrick, let's talk about his game. This was Swansea-Manchester City, decided by a penalty award in City's favour, which Sergio Aguero took after Kevin De Bruyne went down. Bit of dispute among some experts here. Most think it was a penalty and an elbow. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, definite penalty. Might have been difficult for the referee to see first time around, but for me, Kevin De Bruyne is not the kind of person who goes down unless, he's either been hit or he's injured. And, when it was slowed down, you see the actual contact. It's, blatant penalty. Stepped across him and, smashed him.
Your view, Dean?
Yeah, I thought Neil Swarbrick was outstanding. I thought he had a really good game. And this was one of those situations, as Brian said, you watch it first time and it doesn't look much. And it's only when you see the replay where the hand clearly comes out, it's a reckless use of the arm, it's correctly a penalty and a yellow card. And I just thought, it's one of those incidents, Brian, what you think as a player, but as a referee, it's where you look at the players as well. So if you're focusing on the top half of the body, as opposed to the bottom half, sometimes you see a different thing. And there was a penalty appeal earlier on in the game for Swansea, which Neil correctly, in my opinion, turned down. But if you'd have been looking at the top half of the body, you may well have been confused into giving a penalty for impeding with contact. Yeah. So I thought it was I thought Neil Swarbrick was excellent on that game.
Interesting point. Good to see Graham Scott back in the Premier League, a rare outing at that level for him. This was in Spurs' 2-1 victory at Middlesbrough. Yeah. Bit of a fillip for him. Did he do okay for you?
I thought he did well, Graham, and I think at the start of this season he's been very well managed. He's been given some Championship games, some Football League games. PGMOL, I'm sure, will have had coaches there to help him and gain his confidence. And I think this will be a boost for him to go on and do some more Premier League games. Talking about gaining confidence, John Moss often features in this show for the wrong reasons. Maybe we can give some of the right ones here. His game West Ham 0, Southampton 3. But before that, a day before, he was on fourth official duty, so he had a busy weekend. But I particularly noticed during the Bournemouth-Everton game, I was working for TalkSport and hearing Adrian Durham, the presenter of the show, referring to an incident in that Bournemouth game where a player had left the field, was about to come back on, but was in an agitated state. Forget who it was. But the fourth official, being John Moss, deliberately restrained him and kept him off until he calmed down. I know Brian loves fourth officials, so but I think Bobby Madley was the referee, so he'll have been pleased to have someone of John's experience there to support him in the technical areas. And I think this is just a good example of how fourth officials can have a positive influence on the game. So might have stopped him from getting sent off actually as well. Yes, yeah. We'll come to John's game, the actual game at West Ham, in the second part of the ref show, when we also have a case of a referee forgetting to take his whistle onto the field, would you believe? And that was in the Premier League too. But just before we close part one, let's just go back to the Manchester City penalty at Swansea, because I did notice as Aguero was taking it, I reckon there were more players rushing into the area and actually in the area before the kick was taken than were outside it. I have never seen so many players in the area. Should that have been a retake or what? The goal was scored. Should it have been a retake? Well, what the laws of the game say is that if players from both teams encroach, then regardless of the outcome, it should be a retake. But for me, there were Swansea players who entered the area predominantly and first, and therefore I think Neil Swarbrick did the sensible thing and awarded the goal. It should be a tightening up on that, because it was absolutely ludicrous. If you freeze frame that, I bet you've got 7 or 8 players, not just marginally inside, several yards inside. It was like the Olympics, wasn't it? 100 metres. 100-metre sprint to get in there first. Okay, in Ref Show Part 2, we also have an historic incident, the first time that a video referee has been used in the world of football, in the professional world of football, that is, as well, to dismiss a player from the field. That happened during trials in a cup game in the Netherlands. We'll also look at championship referees, talk about the Uden Trophy. Dean is director of the Uden Trophy, and lots more besides, so do rejoin us. In high wind, a player tries to take a throw-in down the line. The ball enters the field but isn't touched by anyone else before it's blown back out again. Is it a retake, a foul throw, or something else?